All right, so thank you for tuning in to Chomp at the Bit. I'm Kyle Litters, of course. And on this episode, I wanted to talk about the college football playoff. I do believe that over in Athens, they are doing their parade for, UGA after they won the national championship. So congratulations to them, of course. If you didn't see the game, of course, I guess I'll go ahead and do it. But it was Georgia, Alabama again. I know that this year, Georgia fans were really optimistic about their chances to beat Alabama. And of course, once you go out on the field, everything changes because at that point it's all about execution. Now, it was a slow-moving game early on. First half was like all field goals, so, there's a lot of movement between the 20s, but neither team could really finish the job and get into the end zone. But the second half, it took off a little bit, got a little bit more exciting. But ultimately, Georgia just made more plays. Not only offensively, but defensively, to overcome that one, last speed bump that's kind of been there for Georgia, which is, actually beating Alabama in a playoff type environment. To me, they still have that speed bump of the SEC title game and, being able to beat Alabama there. It is great that they won it all, of course, but I think it would have been that much sweeter for Georgia if they were to, if they were able to beat Alabama SEC title game, and then if they had turned around and then beat them again in the national championship. That would have been crazy right there. But yes, SEC championship is one thing. You win the national championship, that's clearly a much bigger deal. Going into the game, I didn't know what to expect from Stetson Bennett. And he, more than ever went far and beyond what I thought he was going to do. He showed me, his ability to throw the ball downfield and very accurate. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention to Georgia football. I don't know. But I guess I wasn't expecting that. Then for Alabama, Jameson Williams went down early, which hurt them offensively. But Georgia's front was just relentless on Bryce Young. He was never in a situation where he dropped back and felt any type of comfortability back there. So kind of what they were saying about Georgia last year, where a lot of people thought that was the year that they were primed to beat Alabama because of the talent they had. We saw that this year. So like I said, Georgia won it 33-18. And now for the next few months, Georgia can walk around waving their flags proud and high that they are the national champion. But for me, I want to take this episode not strictly focusing on the championship game, but what does it mean in the grand scheme of college football? Because in the days after, I believe we learned that the committee can't seem to make a decision on college football playoff expansion. And with this being a weird year as it was in terms of the bowl season, where we saw, games postponed, teams being replaced, it wasn't that great of a bowl season. Can I be honest with you? The bowl season really didn't pick up until probably let's say New Year's Eve. it might be New Year's Eve. Because New Year's Eve we got the two college football semifinal games. No, I think it might have been the day before. Yeah, probably the day before. Because Tennessee Purdue was the first game I watched where it was like really, edge of your seat throughout the whole game. Then Wisconsin Arizona State was the Michigan State Pittsburgh was a pretty good game. So I'll say from December 30th, from there on, bowl season kind of got going. All the days before was a lot of canceled games and games that didn't really care about. So I think it was a couple of weeks ago I said like this bowl season was going to be either saved by the college football playoff or it would just become another footnote into how bad this bowl season was. Now I know the semifinal games weren't exactly the most competitive because Alabama and Georgia beat Cincinnati and Michigan pretty handily. And then, like I said, the championship game, it was good for the first half. Second half, Georgia kind of imposed their will on Alabama. Even though, most people said this Alabama team was, I guess people were expecting it to be somewhat of a down year for Alabama. And the fact that they, took that talent, got to the national championship game, says a lot. So I guess Alabama is expected to be that much tougher next year. So, for me looking at it, I'm sure it's probably easy point of view for some people to take that based on how the semifinal games went. Expansion might not be the best thing. For me, I am still a big fan of expansion. And not just like a small expansion where it's like going from 4 to 6 or 8. I think the committee's basically been looking at 8, 10, and 12 as expansion points. And for me, if they're going to expand, it should be only 12 or to 16. 8 and 10 should not be part of the conversation. It needs to be at least 12. And for me, I can handle at most 16 right now. Because like I said, I don't think you don't need like 32 or anything like that. I think if you go to 16, you're probably in the sweet spot. But 12, I can live with. And like I said, after this past bowl season, I think expansion actually has a stronger argument. And not only looking at it because more teams in the playoff is better, but I just think with more playoff teams, you're adding better games to your bowl season. And by doing that, you can kind of cover up some of these weaker bowls and some of the weaker days that they had during bowl season with expanded playoff. An expanded playoff field, meaning more playoff teams playing in playoff games. And that's kind of been my thing all along. It wasn't, yes, the biggest part was giving more schools an opportunity, which I think would filter down to recruiting, meaning talent being spread more across the country, which ultimately I think makes college football that much better. But adding better games to bowl season is a probably secondary reason for me wanting to expand the playoff. Because for every playoff game means, sure, you can sit through new era pinstripe bowl like this year. Maryland beat Virginia Tech 54-10. Not entertaining at all, but let's say on that day you also got some form of a playoff game. It makes the day look a little better. So that's kind of been my thing. mainly expansion for widening the field. Because right now, if you look at recruiting for next year, you're getting all the same teams at the top. Yeah, like Georgia won it this year. The reason why it wasn't that big of a surprise for me was Georgia's been like top 3 in recruiting for the past like many years I can remember. Well, most recent years. They're like top 3, top 5 in recruiting. So if Georgia's already a good team and you're just replenishing the talent with great players coming out of high school, at some point you'd have to get into a good mesh point where the talent just all clicks one year. And that happened this year. So that happened while, Alabama had a little bit of a down year. Ohio State, teams like that had kind of a down year, and that was mainly with COVID and all of that. So and that plays into the next few years, where if Georgia wants to seriously be put on that level at Alabama, there has to be some type of sustained success coming out for this year. It can't be something where, they win the title this year, but next year they don't even make the college football playoff, or they don't make the SEC title game or something like that, which it probably will happen because Georgia's in the SEC East, still really weak over there. But when Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC, we'll have to see what that does to the structure of the SEC, and then maybe Georgia's no longer on the weaker side. Maybe it just becomes one division, and now now Georgia's in the same pool with Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas, teams like that fighting for those 2 SEC title spots. So, like I said, the next few years, this is going to be Georgia's time to capitalize. Because I do think the playoff will expand at some point. Hopefully. I think the earliest they can expand is 2025 or something. So yeah, that's a good 3-year window right there. Because of course, once that happens, now instead of being 1-4 for the national title, hopefully it goes to 1-12, or wishing upon a star, 1-16 to win a title. We know Georgia's going to continue to get talent. I think this year they're 3 in recruiting. I think A&M. I think A&M might be number 1 now in recruiting. So, and that's another SEC team. Who knows? Next year maybe they have a really good year. So, like I said, just do a final little wrap up here of college football. It was a season where, if you look like in most other sports, COVID was the biggest opponent to the season. But from that, we were given the opportunity to see Michigan and Cincinnati in the national title picture by making it to the playoff. Michigan's a big name school, yes, but the Big Ten was basically Ohio State most years. So seeing somebody new come out of the Big Ten was good to see. We saw Michigan State have a really good year, fell off late. Some other schools had really good years. And yes, with the expansion of playoffs, I'm doing that because, sure, Cincinnati got blown out in their game, but who cares? The big reason for me wanting Cincinnati in was for schools like Cincinnati to now be able to go to a recruit's house and say, hey, we made a college football playoff. So you don't have to go to Alabama just to make one, or Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State. You can go to a school, Cincinnati, or what's another, I don't know, smaller school. Ole Miss, Baylor. I think there's another. Wake Forest. There's a good case right there. Wake Forest finished 17th in the ranking. Blew out a Rutgers team even though they weren't supposed to play Rutgers. But, expands to 12 or 16 or whatever. Maybe Wake Forest steals a recruit who would have gone elsewhere because Wake Forest, maybe there's right there on the doorstep of making an expanded playoff. Pittsburgh finished 12. Maybe that helps them now. And once again, I'm not saying these schools don't do well recruiting, but Houston, another school. I mean, heck, look what. Well, I mean, it's Deion Sanders, but I mean, Deion Sanders took a top recruit, got them to go to Jackson State. Ultimately, that doesn't play into the college football playoff because what Jackson State is FCS? Or are they FBS? I don't know. I don't know. But they're a lower level. So, I guess say all that to say, playoff expansion should still be the number one issue for the NCAA. Because yes, 4 teams is cool and all, but if we go into next year and the playoff is Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and I don't know, pick some random thing, Oregon or something. I mean, it would be good to see Oregon in there, but after a while, it'll just get stale with the same 3 out of the 4 teams every year, every other year or something. These, what are they? These people who are running these conferences, who are meeting up and all that, just go ahead and go through with the expansion. Give me what I want. Not just me. I know there's a lot of college football fans who are for expansion. Some of you aren't. Well, I mean, whatever. But I just think it will take college football to another level. And yes, college football is doing well for itself now, but this will push it even higher. And trust me, with this whole image and likeness thing becoming bigger and bigger, you're going to want an expanded playoff. Because if not, I would not doubt if like in 5 years or so, you're going to start hearing smaller schools crying foul about how they can't get, players to come into their school. So they're not seeing. So kids are staying away because they're not going to get any image, likeness, money. That's now another factor into all this, which, I mean, I'm fine with it, but yeah. So, I did see a story. This is the last thing I'll talk about on college football, and then we'll wrap this episode up. So they put out their, way too early top 25 for next year. And tell me if you've heard any of these schools before. So 1, Alabama. 2, Ohio State. 3, Georgia. 4, A&M. I mean, if it were to play out that way and next year you get a 4-team playoff of those 4 teams, I mean, we may have Armageddon because you'd have 3 SEC teams and a Big Ten team. So maybe it won't happen that way. It obviously won't. But I mean, 5 Michigan, 6 Notre Dame, 7 Utah, 8 North Carolina State. That's interesting. Oklahoma State, Michigan State. That's rounding out your top 10. So even in the top 10, not a lot of diversity amongst conferences. So the top 4 would be interesting. But let's just say, if you played this out, you had those 10. Let's say they expand to 12. You're now bringing in Clemson and Oregon. And like I said, they went to 16. Houston 13, Wake Forest 14, Iowa 15, Baylor 16, and your team's just outside Oklahoma 17. Yeah. If you had a 16-team playoff with those schools, you have still your big name schools. But now look at the opportunities. Utah, North Carolina State, Houston, Wake Forest. I just think that makes it more exciting. So those are my thoughts on college football, what they need to do from here. And don't let the fact that the semifinal games were kind of blowouts deter you from wanting expansion. It will be a good thing. It's the best thing college football could do. So, but yeah, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know it is Wild Card Weekend, so if you go ahead and take a listen to the episode before, you will hear my breakdown of the Saturday games to get you started, to get you ready for Wild Card Weekend, which starts 4:30 today, and then second game is 8:15 or something like that. So check that episode out, once you're done with this one. And as I always say, be safe out there. God bless. I'll catch you next episode. All right, I'm out.